Welcome to this podcast segment of A Beautiful Day to Learn. My name is Abigail at samahan niyo ako with various discussions on education, journalism, communication, language, and literature. Today's discussion centers on the 14 learner-centered psychological principles. Saan nga ba nanggaling ang 14 na ito? These principles were prepared by the Learner-Centered Principles Workgroup of the American Psychological Association's Board of Educational Affairs, or BEA, in November 1997, wherein they created a framework for school reform and redesign. We begin first with the cognitive and metacognitive factors. So just with the words cognitive and metacognitive, alam natin agad na ito ay associated with learning and thinking, or yung brain talaga yung naiisip natin. So the 6 sub-principles would be the nature of the learning process, the goals of the learning process, construction of knowledge, strategic thinking, thinking about thinking, and also the context of learning. So ito muna yung pag-usapan natin for cognitive and metacognitive factors. The nature of the learning process tells us that the learning of complex subject matter is most effective when it's an intentional process of constructing meaning from information and experience. Therefore, experience dictates the meaning. Experience creates new meaning. Experience provides us with knowledge. Sabi nga, experience is the best teacher that we have. Next sub-principle would be the goals of the learning process. The successful learner, over time, and with support and instructional guidance, can create meaningful, coherent representations of knowledge. Ang focus natin dito is yung learner. So if the learner is successful, anytime, pwede siya mag-create ng representations of knowledge. Bakit? Kasi lagi na siyang supported with instructional guidance, and ito yung ating mga visuals or ito yung mga nare-retain natin sa ating memory. And then the third sub-principle for the cognitive and metacognitive factors would be the construction of knowledge. The successful learner can link new information with existing knowledge in meaningful ways. Tingnan natin yung word na existing knowledge. When we say that, we talk about stock knowledge. We talk about schema. We talk about schematic theory, wherein sinasabi nito na ang tao ay may kakayanang mag-store ng knowledge sa kanilang brain. So para tayo may microchip or SD card na kapag need mo, you will just access it. So our knowledge widens and deepens as we continue to build the link between the new information or experiences and yung existing na nandun na sa ating brain. So, new information plus the existing which is stored in your brain. So, it means you are really equipped to construct new knowledge. Then, we also have the remaining 3 sub-principles under cognitive and metacognitive factors. We have strategic thinking, thinking about thinking, and context of learning. For the strategic thinking, the successful learner can create and use a repertoire of thinking and reasoning strategies to achieve complex learning goals. Ibig sabihin, ang isang learner ay kayang pumili ng approach or ng strategy para makapag-reason out, makapag-solve ng problems, at makapag-conceptualize ng different ideas. When it comes to thinking about thinking or metacognition, definitely alam agad ni learner kung paano siya mag-isip at mag-learn to achieve a certain performance goal. So it says here that successful learners can reflect on how they think and learn, set reasonable learning or performance goals, select potentially appropriate learning strategies or methods, and also to monitor their progress towards these goals. target. Hashtag life goals. And then for the context of learning, learning is influenced by environmental factors including culture, technology, and instructional practices. Ibig sabihin, ang laki ng effect kapag nandun ang technology, which is our guide, which is our learning, and even yung ating environmental factors, which show us the reality, the facts in life. And of course, instructional practices from our teachers, how they instruct us is also important. Then we proceed with the motivational and affective factors. So ito yung tatlong sub-principles under motivational and affective factors. Remember, meron tayong 14 learner-centered psychological principles. So meron na tayong 6 dun sa cognitive and metacognitive factors. Ngayon, meron naman tayong 3 for motivational and affective factors. So ilan na to? We already have 9. So for the motivational and emotional influences on learning, different thoughts, beliefs, goals, and expectations for success or failure can either enhance or interfere with the learner's quality of thinking and information processing. What you bring in is what you bring out. Or kung mas simple, kung ano yung tinanim mo, yun din yung halaman nun, yun din yung puno nun, yun din yung bunga nun. Diba? And then, if you invest goodness, you also reap goodness. If you give kindness, then you also receive kindness. Ayan. So when it comes naman sa intrinsic motivation to learn, it is stimulated by tasks of optimal novelty and difficulty relevant. Take a look at the word relevant to personal interests and providing for personal choice and control. Ibig sabihin, intrinsic motivation, something that is from within. At andyan din yung ating keywords such as personal interest, personal choice, personal control. Siyempre, motivation mo yan eh. Sariling motivation mo yan. So, ikaw lang ang makakakontrol at makakapili for that. And then we have the effects of motivation on effort. Effort is another major indicator of motivation to learn. The acquisition of complex knowledge and skills demands the investment of considerable learner energy and strategic effort along with persistence over time. So, lagi natin yung binabanggit, no? May grade ba yung effort ko? Nag-effort naman ako, bakit walang grade? So, may mga ganyan tayong iniisip, no? But as teachers, this is what we have to consider. The amount of motivation given by the student to do a particular task can be seen on the amount of effort that was produced for that task. More effort, more motivation. More motivation, more effort. Okay? So, ayan, meron na tayong 3 for the motivational and affective factors. We are done with 9. Now, we proceed with 2 more. So, we have 11 now. The developmental and social factors. So, we have here the developmental influences on learning. Learning is most effective when different developmental factors within and across physical, intellectual, emotional, and social domains is taken into account. Ibig sabihin, matututo ako hindi lang dahil nahawakan ko. Matututo ako dahil naapektuhan rin ang puso ko. Matututo ako dahil mas naintindihan ko siya. Matututo ako dahil apektado pala ang society ko. Okay, so developmental influences. And then we have the social influences on learning. So social, society, relationship yung pinag-uusapan natin dito. Learning can be enhanced when the learner has an opportunity to interact and to collaborate with others on instructional tasks. Very important dito yung engagement ng learner with other students. Kasi this is the time that they get to collaborate their ideas. Hindi lang to basta competition ha, but you collaborate your ideas, you try to accept one idea which is different from another idea, and then try to make something meaningful out of it. And at the same time, dito tayo natututo na mag-delegate ng tasks. Dito tayo natututo na mag-distribute ng mga activities. Dito rin tayo natututo na we have our own responsibilities. And we're now down to the last 3. So 11 yung kanina, 12, 13, and 14 para makomplete natin yung ating 14 learner-centered psychological principles. Again, sino nag-create nito? It's the American Psychological Association. So the last 3 would be dealing with individual differences factors. Individual differences in learning states that individuals are born with and develop their own capabilities and talents. Ibig sabihin, pinanganak na akong meron at madedevelop ko pa. Educators need to help students examine their learning preferences and expand or modify them if necessary. So tayo, pwede nating i-amplify yung kanilang skills or talents, or pwede rin pala nating i-diminish yung mga skills or talents nila. But of course, mas maganda if we amplify them. And then learning and diversity. Well, the same basic principles of tatlo to ha, learning, motivation, and effective instruction apply to all learners. And when we say all learners, that would be regardless of race, color, sex, religion, age, personal beliefs, philosophies in life, level of comprehension, level of thinking, whether atheist or not. Okay, basta, same principles on learning, motivation, and effective instruction pa rin. And lastly, we have the standards and assessment. This tells us that assessment provides important information to both the learner and teacher at all stages of the learning process. Again, all stages. So, ibig sabihin, meron nga tayong formative assessment. We have summative assessment, authentic assessment, traditional assessment, portfolio assessment. So, different types of assessment po ito from the onset up to the end. So, that would be the 14 learner-centered principles or psychological principles. But these 14 were summarized by Alexander and Murphy into 5. So, itong 5 na to would be the knowledge base. Ibig sabihin, yung knowledge daw natin, yan talaga yung foundation of all future learning. And then strategic processing and control, wherein we can actually choose different strategies or methods that will reflect and regulate our thoughts and behaviors to learn more effectively. And then we have motivation and effect, wherein there are different reasons for us to be engaged with learning. Pero important dito is that we enjoy creating the learning tasks because it has a crucial role in the learning process. And then we have the development and individual differences. My learning is unique from your learning because we also have our own unique combination of genetic and environmental factors which really influence us. And lastly, situation or context. Well, learning happens in the context of a society as well as within an individual. Yung learning natin ay depende yan sa situation or context. And that's it. Once again, I am Abigail of A Beautiful Day to Learn, and I hope you learned something from this discussion of the 14 learner-centered psychological principles produced by the American Psychological Association. So thank you very much, and I hope that you have a beautiful day to learn. Bye!